If you enjoy mark making in your artwork and you want to be more expressive and loose, Derwent Inktense Blocks are really good fun. Here I'm doing some grapes. This actual photograph I found when I was looking for something else, and I thought because of the time of year it was a nice one to have a go at. So I'm using a mixed media pad. It's the Faber-Castell A4 mixed media pad, and you'll see that to begin with I wet the whole thing. And I do all of this process with the paper still wet until the point where I leave it to dry and then afterwards come back on with some ink. So you'll see that at the end of the video. To begin with, I'm not doing any drawing at all, and this is a good way to get you to loosen up in your artworks and to be a bit more abstract rather than too realistic, is to just block in the colours using the side of the block there with no drawing. So after that, I start drawing with the corners of the blocks. So they're a big chunky block, so you're not going to get any fine lines. And then I use my brush to add both more of the colour from the block. So I pick the colour up from the block with the brush, just using a damp brush. But I also use the brush with a little bit of water on it to move around what's already on the paper. So you've got a few different techniques there. You've got using the side of the block to put in those big areas of colour to get that abstract feel of where those colours are and the basic shapes. And you'll see mine doesn't look too much like the photograph at the end because you're just using that as a guide to have a bit of fun to create this. So that's the first way, using the side of the block, a dry block onto wet paper, then using the corner of the block to do a little bit of drawing, and then using the brush to manipulate that around and also to add and to build depth. So I'm building depth a lot with the tones as well. So as well as getting that nice mark making with the corners of the blocks and all these unintentional marks that you get when you do them on the sides, I'm getting the depth there by using some very dark colours as well. So don't be afraid to use black. I've got a black block in there that I use to put some shadow behind, because when it's a really bright sunny day you're going to get those very dark shadows, and that gives you a lot of contrast between the highlights where they've got a little bit of white light on the grapes and the very darkest areas, and that's all going to make a much more interesting dynamic picture at the end. So have a play with these techniques. You could use them for all sorts of different subjects, but just block in the basic shapes and the basic colours first, and then build and build and build with layers of colour, layers of different tones and layers of detail, because you get more detail as you go along. So I've not looked at every individual grape. I've just used the shapes and looked at the colours. Because those grapes are still ripening, there's some little bits of green, red and orange in there. So you see I've got a lot of different colour. I could have added some blue as well. The post itself is a completely different colour. If you want to be more accurate with the colours, you can mix the blocks on a palette. So you could get a palette and mix some colours together. But then it becomes a bit more like painting and a little less expressive. You know, you've not got that same mark making. This is more immediate. You're working very quickly. I would suggest you could give yourself a little timed exercise, put a timer on the side, and it might be 10 minutes, 5 minutes, half an hour, whatever you choose, to try and do something in that time space. I just kept working whilst it was wet and then left the whole thing to dry before I added some ink at the end. I like working with ink on top of my paintings. You can get a little bit of detail where you perhaps need it, some expressive lines as well, and you can get really dark because it's a nice dark black. So again, you've got that contrast. So just makes it a bit more expressive. You, if you wanted to, could leave it just as a painting and just have your lines with the corners of the blocks and leave it as it is. It would work either way. That's just a personal preference. I like drawing on top of my paintings, and you'll see that in my own work if you want to take a look at that over on Instagram. You'll see that I use the yellow for some little highlights down the side. Yellow is a particularly good colour in the Derwent Inktense blocks for getting a bit of light back, and it covers really well on top of the other colours. The white doesn't always cover too well. It perhaps works better once it's dried, putting the white over the top once everything else is dried. Otherwise it tends to just meld away and you can't really see it, but it does have its applications. It is handy now and again to use the white. But you'll see what I do right at the end is I use a white acrylic pen to put some highlights back in. So if you have lost your highlights, you're using mixed media, it doesn't matter, there's always another medium you can use to put on. And that's another good reason to choose a paper like this, which is a mixed media pad, so you can put whatever you want on there to get the effect that you want, so you're not restricting yourself. So I'll just put that acrylic pen at the end, which again, acrylic pens are something I use in my own landscapes. Again, really good fun, so it's a paint in a pen. And just have a bit of a play with that at the end. But yes, that white block is quite handy. It's handy for mixing in other colours to change the tones. It's quite opaque as well, so have a bit of a play with it. So the thing about all your art materials, but particularly these Derwent Inktense blocks if you've got them, and I know a few of you do have them, is just to see what you can do with them, because you can actually go from very, very detailed. If you look back at what we did last week or the week before, I did an apple, and I'll link that up above. That was much more detailed than this is, so by using them in a slightly different way. So they have lots of different applications and ways of using them. So here I am with a pen at the end, and it just makes those grapes pop out a little bit by putting those shadows behind and getting some lines in those leaves, so that we know that they're the leaves of the vine, which are quite distinctive. Okay, so I think I'll stop waffling on now as we're getting towards the end of this. If you've any questions about the process, if you've any questions about the Derwent Inktense blocks, please do put those in the comments below. I will link that other video in the comments below as well. Sorry, in the description below, should I say. And if you want to let me know in the comments also if there's anything else that you would like, another subject you'd like me to tackle in the Derwent Inktense blocks, I'll do that for you as well. This picture of the grapes, like I said, I got that from pixabay.com. So if you go onto pixabay.com and just pop in the search grapes, you'll quickly find this photograph. It's a brilliant site for getting photographs that you can use that are license free, so you don't have to worry about copyright or anything like that. Okay, so you enjoy your painting and drawing, and I will be back again soon with another tutorial or demonstration. Bye bye for now.